Oh, it's big.
Hey, it's a big one.
It's Lebowski.
It's the Big Lebowski.
Oh.
I've just put those two things together there quite cleverly.
Hello, welcome to Diminishing Returns. I'm Sol, that's Alan. We're doing
Hello.
The Big Lebowski.
Ooh, cult favourite, The Big Lebowski. Hey Sol, I just smoked a J before we recorded because I'm like a stoner dude now because I watched The Big Lebowski.
A J? What's that?
A blunt.
What? Like a blunt object?
The devil's lettuce.
What? You don't want to warm lettuce up. You want it ice cold, chill, straight out the fridge.
Okay, Mary Jane.
What? You smoke to human beings? Remains.
Grass. Some grass.
Well, that's just... I mean... I know some kids at school who did that because they thought they were very cool.
I just smoked the inside of a banana peel. Yeah. No, I've also started drinking White Russians.
Oh, yeah.
Wearing a dressing gown all the time. Because that's how cool I am. Yeah, it's very really cool, isn't it? Yeah, anybody who does that is really cool. Especially if they go to a place where other people are doing it and join in. They're definitely not wankers.
Have we ever covered a Coen Brothers production on this show before?
I don't believe we have, which is surprising because they are my favourite filmmakers. Pretty much, definitely top 3.
Yeah.
And I know we have talked about them a lot. I know you've never quite synced with them, have you? You've never quite.
That's not entirely true, but I think one of my hot takes, my controversial hot takes, is going to be coming out this episode.
Ooh, controversy.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, everybody who's listening to this, I'm sure, has watched The Big Lebowski. It's a cult favourite. Didn't do particularly well on release, but it's one of those films that really gained traction on the old DVD circuit, I think, in the sort of late 90s, early noughties, when all that actually meant something. So, where do we start? It's the Coen brothers. They were already well established by this point. Their previous film was Fargo, which had won Oscars and had really legitimised them. They'd already won the Palme d'Or.
Your favourite film, apparently, I've been told.
Fargo, oh yeah, definitely right up there. We haven't done that yet on the show. So, yeah. Where do we start? Okay. The Dude. Shall we start with The Dude?
If you want. It's hard because we've not done the Coen brothers, so it's such a big thing to kind of... It's difficult to not approach this with a degree of contextual... what's the word I'm looking for? I kind of want to put it in context of their career, and it's hard to do that having never really spoken about them before on the show.
Well, it definitely fits in with their oeuvre to a certain extent, although... You could certainly argue that they don't pin themselves down too much, but there is eccentric characters. It's very quirky. Yeah.
The Coens?
Yes.
They make 2 types of films.
Yeah, well, that's 2 different types of films, isn't it?
Well, I mean...
Go on then, what are the 2 types?
Well, the kind of dramas that are a bit funny.
Yeah.
And the comedies that aren't funny at all.
Okay, so you're not on board with the Coen humour. I am, I think. So, the likes of Raising Arizona, Hudsucker Proxy all came before.
Oh, now there you go. That's a funny film. Hudsucker Proxy is funny. You know why?
Sam Raimi was
involved. Sam Raimi was one of the 3 writers on it. No, but it's bizarre. Like, genuinely, that film I sat down and watched, and I was like, oh, this is actually genuinely funny. And then I found out Sam Raimi wrote it with them, and it was just like, oh, interesting.
Funny as Spider-Man 3.
Spider-Man 3 is hilarious.
I know you were going to say that. So, would you say... So let's talk about Jeff Bridges. This is probably the most kind of associated... role with Jeff Bridges, I think, and he's had a very long and illustrious career.
Yeah,
but I think this is the Jeff Bridges role that people think of.
Yeah,
and I think there's a sense. I don't know how true this is, but there's a sense from people that there's a lot of him in there. Like he's like kind of like a bit of a stoner guy, or so. Seems like he was in the 60s and 70s, like when he was a young man, and then
I mean, as it happens, I just happened to be listening to some people talk about Iron Man on another podcast earlier today, and they started quoting Jeff Bridges, and they were all reading out his quotes like, "We didn't have a script, man." Like they were just doing dude impressions, and like the presumably the quotes included the words "man" and "dude" and stuff. So
yeah, maybe
we were just making it up as we went along, man.
So the plot is, I guess it's very piecemeal. It's kind of, it's not really meandering because it is sort of driving somewhere all the time.
I just don't get it, Alan. What is? Why are they fun? What's fun? Because my problem with Coen Brothers comedies is it's not that I watch it and think, well, that's not funny. It's that I watch it and it doesn't even register as a joke. If I didn't know this was supposed to be a comedy film, I would have just thought it was a kind of offbeat drama. And the same's true of every Coen Brothers film I've ever watched. And,
but does it not work on that level? If you watch it on that level?
Well, not this one particularly, because there isn't enough plot, and it's just not. I don't know. I went to see one of the most upsetting film experiences I think I've ever had.
Trash Humpers.
I mean, that was more upsetting. But at that same film festival, I went to see A Serious Man, the Coen Brothers film, with Calvin, and we thought, oh, good, we're in for a funny comedy from these masterful writer-directors. And then everyone was just chuckling away, laughing. But they weren't laughing at jokes. And when I asked Calvin what was funny about that film, he couldn't tell me. He just went, oh, it's just kind of a mood. And I was like, well, give me an example of a joke. And he was like, there aren't jokes in it. And there was a line in that film where he's like a physics professor or something. And they open a scene and he sort of says, and so the cat exists in a super state, which means that the cat is both alive and dead. And he's got Schrodinger's cat written on the... Yeah, well, I mean, you're making a joke out of it, but that is the reaction the audience had. And I was just looking around like, yeah, that is Schrodinger's cat. How's that a joke? That's just the ending of him explaining Schrodinger's cat.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, A Serious Man is certainly not my favourite Coen Brothers film. I didn't particularly get on with that one either.
I think, to be honest, I think Fargo is a funny film. I think True Grit is quite a funny film. I think the Coens are actually very funny, but only when they have like a solid framework of character and story to put the jokes on. And so when they make a quote-unquote comedy, I think it's just incredibly self-indulgent bollocks, and I don't like it, and I don't find it funny.
Self-indulgent.
Incredibly self-indulgent.
Like, I found Hail Caesar to be self-indulgent.
Still, I haven't seen it.
Because that was just like, let's celebrate kind of golden age Hollywood, and then it kind of didn't get further than that.
Every scene in a Coen Brothers comedy is just kind of, oh, they thought this might be like a laugh for them and their mates on set. That's kind of the impression that I get watching these films.
It's not a fucking Seth Rogen film, is it? Come on.
Well, I don't know. It feels like a Seth Rogen film made by the two most serious men on earth who can only express humour through their films. And I imagine us sat there not talking on set, like very quietly looking at the monitor.
Well, okay. Let me be a bit more specific. Do you find Philip Seymour Hoffman's character funny in this film?
That's the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce Business Achiever Award, which is given, well, not necessarily given every year. Given only when there's a worthy somebody.
Is this him with Nancy?
Yes, indeed. That is Mr. Lebowski with the First Lady, yes. Let's take in when Mrs.
That's Lebowski on the left there?
Yeah, of course, Mr. Lebowski on the left.
So he's a handicapped guy?
Mr. Lebowski is disabled, yes. This picture was taken when Mrs. Reagan was First Lady of the nation. Yes. Not of California.
Is he meant to be funny in this film?
Well, I find it very funny.
Genuinely, I'm not... Yeah, no, I don't. I thought he was meant to be a straight man, if anything.
Well, it is... He's very over the top. It's this kind of like the archetypal sidekick butlery kind of role, you know, the assistant who's takes everything too seriously, and he's trying to paper over the cracks. But he's doing it very over the top style, like acting style, which he gets away with. It's a difficult thing to do. But that's just one example, I guess. That's a character that I find funny. What about David Thewlis? Did you find him funny?
God, I don't remember who he plays in it.
He's in one scene, weird little kind of cameo thing, where the dude goes to see Julianne Moore, and there's this video artist just sat in the chair, giggling and stuff with a
not
Scouse
particularly.
accent.
I'll tell you the one bit I found vaguely funny
Okay.
was when the policeman was having a sit down with the dude, and he basically tells him to fuck off, and then the dude goes, "You fucking fascist," or whatever it is he said. He calls him a fascist, and I found that amusing.
Is that after he threw the mug at his head?
Yeah, it was that whole bit. I found that lightly, vaguely amusing. That might be a vaguely funny scene in a drama.
Yeah.
But it's weird because I think I do jibe with their sense of humour. Because, like I say, Fargo's a funny film.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great thrill. It's like a great crime movie.
Yeah.
And it works on a serious level.
So you're sort of saying this doesn't have enough else to hold it together?
I think partly, but I think I don't know, it's weird. I just don't... It doesn't register as humour. It doesn't register as funny. Honestly, I wouldn't know any of their films were supposed to be comedies were I not explicitly told that.
What about John Turturro as Jesus Quintana? This is much more overtly comedic, and that character, for example, is a distinctly over-the-top, silly comedy character.
What's this day of rest shit? What's this bullshit? I don't fucking care. It don't matter to Jesus. But you're not fooling me, man. You might fool the fucks in the league office, but you don't fool Jesus. It's Bush League Sega stuff. Laughable, man. I would have fucked you in the ass Saturday. I'll fuck you in the ass next Wednesday instead. Woo! You got a day Wednesday, baby!
He's cracking.
Well, is that enough to make it a comedy? That a character's a bit over the top and chewing the scenery?
What, is Al Pacino in it?
Well, that's what I mean. I don't think there's much difference between John Turturro in this and Al Pacino in most of his films. It's like they're obviously having fun with it, but is that funny? I don't think so, and I wouldn't. I mean, what's the joke with him? He's a guy who comes in and he overacts. Is that?
It is, and this is where I would sort of accept your criticisms. There's a lot of elements here that don't really add anything. You know, Jesus Quintana is obviously it adds a lot of things because it's become such an iconic character, but it's not driving the plot really in any way. It's not doing anything for the film itself, the narrative.
Oh yeah, you could remove his scenes and it wouldn't make the slightest bit of difference to the film, which makes it all the more baffling that we're doing this episode to tie into the upcoming John Turturro Jesus Rolls spin-off.
Yeah, it's an odd thing. We'll come back to that at the end, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's things like that. The John Polito bit is a private detective who's looking for money doesn't add anything, and that's
you know what it is as well.
Funny.
I think the Coen brothers are such disciplined, incredible filmmakers when they're making drama. But when they're making comedy, they just get self-indulgent and don't care. And I think they do just have all these characters come in for tangents and plot strands that go nowhere. And I don't know, I guess it's a joke that I don't get. But
well, I mean, in this specific case, I've read about the film, and they wanted to make a film that was reminiscent of Raymond Chandler novels, which were sort of similarly kind of meandering and never quite kind of completing a plot. So it was a deliberate reference to that. I mean, that doesn't play if you're not familiar with that. It probably doesn't play if you are familiar with that, because it's not like it's based on a Chandler novel or anything. It's not set in the 30s with a private detective or anything like that sort of thing. But that's their kind of inspiration point, I suppose. So you could certainly argue that's self-indulgent because it doesn't translate.
I'm not convinced I'd like any Raymond Chandler novels if I read them either.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely don't think I'd find them funny.
You're very hung up on the humour, though. If say you don't find this particularly funny, is there nothing else here for you?
Well, not really. That's the thing. I'm hung up on it because I don't like that I can't. I'm genuinely flummoxed by their comedies, and it really upsets me because I watch something incredibly unfunny like Ahmed the Dead Terrorist. I can still register, right, that's following the structure of a joke. This is what you might find funny if you were operating at that base level that, like most humor, whether or not I find it funny, I can understand it and get it. But the Coen brothers, I just don't. It's beyond my comprehension. I do not get it, and I feel like my mother watching a sitcom that I
The
like.
Mighty Boosh.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair. I mean, obviously, humor is subjective to a certain extent, and you know lots of people find this funny and entertaining. It's a big, successful cult film. So
I'm the only person I know who doesn't find it funny. In fact, I think part of what really aggravates me about it is that this is generally amongst filmy, wanky film student types that I spend my days with. I'd say this is probably the most popular selection if you were to ask them to pick the greatest comedy ever made. I've heard a lot of people refer to it as the greatest comedy ever made. I've heard a lot of people call it the funniest film ever made. And it's just baffling.
I don't know. I like the film. I find it funny. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's just comedy, that's what wins me over. And it's not even necessarily all that laugh out loud funny. I certainly did laugh out loud sometimes. But, like, the dude, for example, that character, like, the way that character is embodied is very entertaining. He's a funny character. Not necessarily gags, but, the way he behaves, the way he reacts to the situation.
Annoying. I think I know too many people like that. And they're all annoying knobheads.
Who do you know like that? Slacker stoners.
You know people like that. We went to uni together.
But is he supposed to be a likable character, particularly?
I think so, yeah.
But you're supposed to approve of his lifestyle choices?
Not necessarily, but
he's a good man. He's a good person,
not,
right?
Well, I don't know. I like lots of comedies with heinous, unlikable characters that, you're supposed to follow, but I guess I find them funny enough and there's enough bite to them. But it's not. It's just Jeff Bridges just like being like, "Hey man, whatever, dude. You do what you want, man. Like, whatever."
Well, I think that's deliberate. He's a passive character, isn't he? To a large part, and then occasionally is forced to take action, which he doesn't particularly want to. Okay, if I was going to pick an element of this film that you did like, I would go with John Goodman. So how do you feel about that character?
I mean, he's the best of a bad bunch. And
this is another one where I would say this is probably John Goodman's most iconic character. This is probably what he's kind of...
You reckon?
Yeah.
More than Fred Flintstone?
King Ralph?
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. What about Roseanne?
Yeah, I think Roseanne hasn't quite stood the test of time in the same way. And it's also... Roseanne, he's quite an everyman. He's the dad.
Well, I've never seen it.
Oh, it's great. Roseanne's great, but he's like a typical Midwestern overweight dad. So it's not a particular standout role, even though he does it very well. Whereas this is a very distinct character, and it's it comes with all the great quotes and stuff that people love to do.
Well, right. This is another thing. All the quotes. This film's known as being so quotable.
Yeah.
But then the quotes are just like, a Chinaman peed on my rug or something. Like, what?
Well, Chinaman is not the preferred nomenclature, actually. It's Asian American.
I know that's a quote as well.
Well, I don't know if that would be my choice of quotes. But yeah, I think you may suffer here, Saul, and rightly so. And something we mildly took the piss out of right at the beginning of the episode, that this has become such a cult favourite. That it's a cult favourite of a load of wankers who dress up and think they're cool and quote from it all the time, and it's kind of a victim of its own success in that sense.
That definitely doesn't help it.
Yeah.
from my perspective.
Yeah, I understand.
But I don't think I find it funny to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, this was one of the first films I came across when I was getting into film. So we're talking, circa 2005, probably, that I'm really looking into films and obtaining copies of things on the internet and so on. So I guess it is that period you're on about where, the DVD market was ripe and this film was firmly established as a cult favourite.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, it took me a while to get my head around what legitimate cinema considers to be comedy anyway, because I'll tell you what, it's not Walk Hard.
That's true, it's not funny at all.
But it's like I saw someone on Twitter yesterday talking about how Parasite is the funniest Best Picture winner of all time. Yeah. And I thought, no, it's not. And I went and looked at every Best Picture winner, and maybe it is. I think it is. Can you name a funnier Best Picture winner?
Let's see, off the top of my head. Nothing is jumping out to me. For me, The Big Lebowski is similar, I guess. It was one of the films I watched when I was first getting into cinema. Probably would have been early 2000s. And it's definitely a film that, in my mind, somehow I associate with Boogie Nights, which we covered a couple of weeks ago. Similar era, a couple of the same actors. Probably the first things that I saw Julianne Moore in, the first things I saw Philip Seymour Hoffman in. Both involve these kind of porn producer characters as well. So maybe there's a connection there. Quite different styles, very different types of films. But I think, they're very
similar, actually. I made that same connection watching this again for the podcast. But I mean, would you call Boogie Nights a comedy?
No.
Exactly. I'd say it's a drama that certainly has a sense of humour and a levity about what it's doing.
But Big Lebowski is a very different tone. I think Big Lebowski is a comedy. It certainly sets out to be one if you don't find it funny or not.
See, to me, I'd say they are very similar tone. I'd take The Big Lebowski, my reading of it, if it weren't for all the context surrounding it, I would just read it as a kind of drama, but a light-hearted one that isn't taking itself too seriously.
Well, I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that as a concept as well. That's not a problem.
Well, I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't feel like there's enough plot and so forth to justify it on that level.
Yeah, okay. I've got to agree somewhat. The plot does not... I mean, like I say, I think it's always driving forwards. There's a couple of scenes that are not required. And it's deliberately like, here's a strand that's going somewhere. Here's a strand that's deliberate, whether you like it or not.
But it's driving forward to nothing, essentially.
Yes, it doesn't,
and not in a way like Burn After Reading, where that is very deliberately the point and a meta deconstruction of storytelling and so on. I mean, perhaps in a way that is the point.
It's deliberate. It is. Yeah. Deliberately has no ending. I do think that's not particularly satisfying. That this whole thing was just a big kind of misunderstanding kind of thing.
I think that's another problem with Coen Brothers comedies, is that they seem to revel in not giving them anything resembling a satisfying conclusion.
Yeah.
Well, they obviously do it on purpose. The Serious Man's the most egregious, blatant example of it, and I know what they're doing, I just don't like it. But this feels like the same thing done to a much lesser extent, a much more subtle take on it.
I think that is in theory something that I wouldn't get on with, but obviously there's something here that makes that palatable for me. And for me, it's character. That's what gets me in this film. It's the characters. I think they're extremely well realised. One thing the Coen brothers always do extremely well is get their actors to perform in the right way, and I think they just nail it here. Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, Steve Buscemi is probably a bit wasted, but it's a silly kind of little character, and that's fine. Julianne Moore plays that character extremely well. That's definitely one of their strengths that goes across their career.
And I'm not sure they are really well realised characters, to be honest, because they're just... Every character in this film, it's just like pick an actor and then pick 5 like manatee ball style personality traits for them. So I'm gonna have a go now. I'm just gonna come up with a Big Lebowski character. Who's a hot act? Right, Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
And he's got a pet sugar glider.
What's that? A lizard?
They're like little mammal, little squirrely things.
Oh, okay.
He's got a sugar glider. He's diabetic as well, so he has to take an insulin shot every now and then. And he carries little peanut butter sandwiches with the crusts chopped off in cling film because of the diabetes. So he's got a little snack all the time. So he's always snacking on peanut butter sandwiches. There's 3 personality traits.
I'm not laughing yet. Can you give
Yeah,
a
well,
silly
neither am
name?
I. But neither am I at the dude just drinking White Russians all the time.
I don't think that's supposed to be funny.
And he wears a dressing gown. He likes to bowl, and he drinks White Russians.
Yeah.
John Goodman, but he's ex-military. He's converted to Judaism, and he's got an anger problem. Steve Buscemi, but nothing. It's just Steve Buscemi.
Well, what more do you want?
I mean, I just don't know if that constitutes a character. It's 3 gimmicks and an actor each time.
Yeah, but if you've got a good actor who can pull that together, then that's great.
But I don't know who these people are. I don't know what makes them tick. I don't really have a sense at all that like I begin to know them as people. I just get that they fit into these like gimmicky. They've got about as much depth as Guy Ritchie characters. They might as well be called that's Jeff the dude. And the thing about him is he's always wearing that dressing gown.
Yeah, but if you take a Guy Ritchie character, give him a good director and a good actor, then you're onto something.
Well, like Sherlock Holmes.
No.
Robert Downey
Absolutely
Jr.
not. Absolutely not.
I just don't get it.
Well, anyway, you're being very negative. Can you pull any positives out of it? It doesn't have to be about humour, anything that you liked.
Well, I mean, I used to... The last few times I've watched this film, it's kind of just washed over me, and I've just kind of let that happen. I think this is the first time it's really annoyed me, and I've just been like, you know what, fuck off. No, it can't just... But it is quite easy to just let it wash over you, I suppose. It's not... I mean, it's too long. It gets boring after about an hour, but... I don't know, it's well crafted on a technical level. It's well shot, and... The technicality behind the editing's good, I suppose. The acting all is largely quite good.
Music?
I don't remember it, so it's probably fine.
Oh, there's some very interesting choices of music, very atmospheric and...
there's some good songs on the soundtrack, if that's what you mean. Yeah.
What about Sam Elliott as the stranger? Sort of out of reality narrator kind of character.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's just a self-indulgent tangent, isn't he? I mean, I like Sam Elliott, and in theory, I'm happy for him to just pop up in films, but I don't know, I kind of need it. I need more than just that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason I bring that up is because I agree on that one. I don't particularly like the character. I don't think it adds anything. It does feel very just sort of like, here's a wacky character that serves no purpose. So I guess I understand what you're saying about the rest of the film, if that's how you feel about it. But yeah, for whatever reason, lots of other things work for me.
Yeah.
Whereas that
I mean, it's weird. I should say as well, I love the Coen brothers as filmmakers. Like, I really do love their dramas. So it's not like I'm just, I think they're incredibly talented filmmakers. I don't know. I only like half their movies, I guess.
Okay. Well, what else should we address here? Because I don't know. I feel like I can't bring anything up without you just slagging it off. I don't want to talk about it.
Well, I don't know. Like, explain it to me a bit more. Defend it. I don't know what.
Well, I don't think it is. It just appears that you don't like what it is. I think you understand what it is. You just don't like it.
I genuinely don't understand the humor in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Okay, it's a short episode then, isn't it?
There's a trippy trippy dream sequence.
There's a couple of sort of,
And then they do another one
sequences,
because it's like the film itself's run out of ideas. I mean, I wish the Coen brothers would make something not like a crime drama. I mean, I've wanted them to make a horror film ever since I watched The Serious Man, because the opening 10-minute sequence, the sort of prelude to the main film in A Serious Man, is so tense and creepy. I'd love to see them make a horror film. But again, the little flashes of eccentricism in their dream sequences in this, I just kind of wish they'd make something else. I don't think I'm really I don't think I share any interests with them. So when I like what they do and respect what they do, it's because they've made something so immaculately good that I just can't take issue with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that tends to be their fairly straight down the line dramas. But whenever they follow their bliss and do, one for you, one for me, and something a bit more self-indulgent, just doesn't interest me.
Well, I kind of agree to a certain extent that I found that certainly in later films. But I would say this is kind of the sweet spot where they were, just on the edge of being self-indulgent. Like I said, there's a couple elements there that I think are not necessary, but they're still kind of in control enough, or maybe not in control enough, as in they still have to deliver a product. Someone's looking over their shoulder, the producer. Whereas I think they've got more freedom now and they can just do whatever they want. Well, shall we talk about Jesus Rolls then?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I didn't know anything about this at all until you said, we should do Big Lebowski because of this film.
Well, I know that John Turturro's been trying to get this film off the ground for 20 years, basically. And one of the news sites I follow posted up the trailer, and I was like, oh shit, that got made? For the longest amount of time, I kind of got the impression that the Coen brothers weren't willing to sign off on it. Because they were just a bit like, And obviously somewhere along the line, they kind of went, go on then.
Yeah, it's written and directed by John Turturro.
Yeah.
Who, has written and directed things before.
Has he?
Yes, nothing particularly major, but yeah, he does his little indie films.
I mean, it's very odd that he's that fixated on... It's a character who appears in 2 scenes.
Yeah.
For a total of, without exaggerating, perhaps 90 seconds?
Yeah, it's a couple of minutes.
Maybe 2 minutes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, like you say, totally unnecessary to the plot of anything.
Yeah, not a huge amount to him as a character. It's implicit that he's a paedophile.
It's not implicit, it's stated outright.
Well, yeah, but in a way that might not be true, right?
Well, yeah, I guess it's a other character who says that of him. Yes, I watched the trailer. Doesn't really give much away.
Yeah.
It's him coming out of prison after many years, and then he's sort of getting back in touch with some family by the looks of it, and that sort of thing. And the trailer was quite scattershot. I didn't really give much to it, which is not a bad thing as far as I'm concerned. If it's a little indie film about a strange character just doing a few meandering things, that could push some of my buttons.
But then why this character? Why can't you just make the... I don't understand.
It's an odd thing, and 20 years too late as well, frankly.
And he's obviously really fixated on this role, but I think maybe it's just because it's the highlight of his career, and that's it. It reeks of desperation because he's not really got any other,
I mean, I don't know if it's a highlight of his career. It's probably the most iconic part of his career, but that's perhaps not quite the same thing. It's probably most remembered. It's probably how he's most associated in the same way.
Yeah.
John Goodman and Jeff Bridges.
I get the impression, like I say, that the Coen brothers were kind of the ones holding it up. He's been wanting to, they've been talking about making this forever. He's been doing interviews saying he wants to make it. But, it's taken him a long time. I mean, I don't know, it's not a great starting point. And they've not got any involvement in it beyond that. And they he didn't write and direct the scenes he was in the first time. He didn't create that character, so it's
Plus,
all a bit.
it's such a big character over the top that it works in that small burst. It works as a silly character in a slightly silly world. I mean, I'm not sure how it's gonna play.
I think it's gonna play very, very badly, to be honest. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but it's currently sat with 4.4 on IMDb. And obviously that's not... The rating will settle out a bit as more votes come in, but that is based on, I believe, film festival screenings. Although looking at it, it's come out in Italy last year. So that's based on what the Italians made of it.
Oh, what are they now?
So maybe America will be more receptive, who knows? But 4.4 out of 10 is not a... I mean, that is a bad rating. It's apparently, do you know it's a remake, this film?
Of what?
Of a French film. Les Valueuses. Les Valueuses.
And what is that in English?
Les Valseuses. Going places.
So that might be about someone coming out of prison and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, might be. But that's interesting. That's a totally different influence.
Well, it's a film from 1974 that seems to be held in fairly high regard, and I believe it's well known for being incredibly button-pushing, raunchy, extreme for when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking now. Widely considered one of the most controversial films in French cinema due to its vulgarity, depiction of sexual acts, nudity, and moral ambiguity.
Ooh.
Kind of an odd choice. It translates into English as the waltzers, apparently, which is a vulgar French slang term for...
sex.
Not far off. The testicles.
The waltzers?
Yeah.
You don't dance with testicles.
Well, they dance below the crotch area, don't they? I imagine that's where it comes from. And it stars Gérard Depardieu.
Of course it does.
And two other French people.
There are no other French people. I might watch that. It sounds good.
Gérard Depardieu plays. Guess the name.
Jean.
Yeah, keep going.
Jean-Paul.
Jean what?
Jean-Paul.
Oh, Alan, you were so close. Jean-Claude.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it seems to be a respected film, at least in the kind of John Waters sense.
Yes, yeah, I'm okay with that.
But obviously cheap enough that John Turturro could buy the rights to remake it. It's just a very weird...
It is a very weird
project.
Whole thing. Yeah.
But then what is it? What is it about actors who have a character that they're kind of known for, just doing a remake of an old European film, but like as a comedy with that character?
Like Mr. Bean.
Why do they... Well, yeah, exactly. That's a perfect example. Mr. Bean, Mr. Bean's Holiday, Monsieur Helot's Holiday, yeah. I was thinking of Pee-wee's Big Adventure and the Bicycle Thief. Yeah. But it seems to be quite a common thing.
Well, let's come up with some ideas. What could we remake? A remake of Breathless, Bout de Souffle, with Rob Schneider as that guy in Adam Sandler films.
I want one for Steve Buscemi's character in those Adam Sandler films as well. Crazy Eyes. Crazy Eyes in a reimagining of Battleship Potemkin.
Yeah, I can see that working.
Okay, the Three Colors trilogy.
Yeah, but
comedic remake of the Three Colors trilogy, starring Tracy Morgan.
Tracy Morgan as himself, a thinly veiled version of himself.
Yeah.
a crap comedian with diabetes.
All right, Tom Cruise as that Harvey Weinstein character he played in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
Because that's a character, again, that's exactly the kind of character that an actor like him, I think he was talking about making a spin-off of that character for a while.
I would have been a bad idea as well.
Him in a remake of
Chinatown.
be
Polanski's very popular these days.
Has to be a European film.
Yeah, I mean, oh no, he was still allowed in America at the time. What about Three Men and a Baby? Three Men and a Cradle. Remake that as a comedy with Ted Danson.
3 Men and a Baby, starring Tom Cruise as Harvey Weinstein, John Turturro as the Jesus, Paul Rubens as Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
You know, Pee Wee Herman, he's still trying to make an adult R-rated Pee Wee Herman movie, which he's been talking about for 20 years.
Yeah.
I
could see that working, man.
I'm all for it.
Well, would you like to rate The Big Lebowski? Let's give it an official number.
I'm giving it a 5 out of 10.
You think that's going to go down well with the public?
I don't give a shit.
Oh.
Gloves off. I used to I had this pegged as a 7 out of 10 before, and that was very much on my kind of teenage watching films. I don't dare upset the apple cart kind of way of rating things. And, 7... I just got so bored rewatching it again, and it is so self-indulgent, and so I think it really is more fair to give it a 6, and then I think I'm just so annoyed with it because I think I've taken a point off for like backlash.
Yeah, you're at the front of the backlash. Well, for me, I mean, I agree with some of the points you made, but ultimately, obviously, I chime with this level of humour or whatever it is. I like the characters. I agree there are some definitely self-indulgent moments. Some of those I'm okay with because it's just a funny character or it's an interesting scene or whatever. There's definitely elements that I'm not that fussed about that could come out of it. It's probably just a little bit too long. But ultimately, I really like it. And it is one of the films that sealed the Coen brothers for me as some of my favourite filmmakers. It's one of the films that really got me into film when I was a young man. And that legacy of it as well is, in terms of my personal taste, my personal life, is definitely shown here. But I'm going to give it a 9.
Oh!
Yes. Well, I'd be very interested to hear from our listeners because I think you are going to be in the minority, my friend.
I know I am.
Nobody came out to defend Walk Hard.
Yeah, they did.
You wait till the Big Lebowski nutters come out. Everyone who's really cool, post a picture of yourself drinking a White Russian.
Have you ever had a White Russian?
No, I don't drink alcohol, so...
I know, but you did for a time before you gave it up.
I'm pretty sure I've had Kahlua, but no, I haven't had a White Russian.
I don't think I've ever had a proper one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like one. But then I probably wouldn't. It probably actually isn't that nice. Because in my head, it's like, ooh, a nice milkshake. But then I bet in reality, it's like...
It tastes like vodka.
Oh, a taste of vodka, yeah.
Yeah, you just want a chocolate milkshake. That's what you want. And I'm alright with that. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. I'd like to apologise for Saul's lack of humour. Because he's just...
don't blame me. Blame the Coen brothers.
He's a miserable man who can't laugh. He can't laugh at the finest things in life. But he will laugh at someone going, "We need cocks. Hello, everyone. We need cocks." That's what he finds funny.
Well, no, I mean that's the only joke you remembered from Dewey Cox last time, and I didn't find it funny then either.
It's literally the first line of the film.
I know, but
Oh god.
I said at the time then that I didn't particularly like that line.
Yeah, whatever.
Look, listeners, by all means, explain the humour in this film to me. Explain to me how this is funny, because I don't think you can do it.